Hey, Richard Cole back again. Hope you are enjoying my podcast. It's very interesting. There's so much going on in the world today. I want to copy or capture as much as I can. Today, I decided to dig deeper into this New York City trial against Trump. It's just amazing to me what's going on. And the Democrats believe all of this. Uh, he's got two major charges against him. One is hush money being paid to the porn star and then manipulating the books. That's the one charge. The other is charged with paying this hush money to affect presidential elections, which is a federal crime. The problem with all of this is the New York one, where he's paid hush money, has the statute of limitations, got it right here. For falsifying business records to a second degree, a conviction will result in Class A misdemeanor. All misdemeanors in New York have a statute of limitations for 2 years. What he's being charged with is really a misdemeanor. However, he is somehow trying to get it into a federal crime. On the other hand, falsifying business records in the first degree is a Class E felony, which is what he's being charged with. A felony offense statute of limitations is 5 years. Now, I don't know if you're good at math out here. It's more than 5 years. This was done in 2016. And it's certainly more than 2 years. So that's how they're handling this. The other thing is they can't prove that Trump was definitely involved in it. They've interviewed all these different people, not interviewed, had him testify. All these different people. No one can tie Trump definitely into knowing how it was paid. Even they brought in a tape of Michael Cohen, the great big witness that they have yet to bring him on. He's the one that used to be Trump's attorney, and he is supposed to prove that Trump knew all about this. They have a phone call taped Michael Cohen taped a phone call between him and Trump, unbeknownst to Trump, some years ago when this was going on, in 2016. And they talk about the hush money being paid. And Trump, obviously, you could tell by this tape that he was working on other stuff and wasn't paying much attention. And they never specifically got into how it was to be handled, how it was to be booked. And Cohen kept saying, I'll handle it. So the tape that Cohen has is going to work against the prosecution. They have to tie Trump into, without a reasonable doubt, that he knew and was involved in how this was booked. So he's not going to do it. They're not going to do it. As far as the election tampering, I'm going to play for you now a very, very interesting video. This is taken from Megyn Kelly's podcast. Megyn Kelly, you knew her from from Fox News. Megyn Kelly has the best podcast out there, I think. She's very, very interesting. So she's talking about this along with Andy McCarthy. Andy McCarthy used to be a federal prosecutor for the Southern District of New York. Sorry about that. He talks about the John Edwards case. If you remember John Edwards, he was running for vice president under John Kerry. They're with John Kerry, and found that he was messing around with a woman while his wife had cancer, and tried to hide that information. They then charged him for paying the hush money to affect the election. The feds didn't want to do it. They didn't think, the people who knew all about election laws didn't think there was a case there, but the prosecutors in North Carolina, this was, decided to go ahead with it. They went ahead with it and wound up in a hung jury. One count was he was found not guilty, and I'll talk about that. Let me take you now to the video that I'm talking about.
To the extent they're talking about the Edwards case, that's a very interesting case to to talk about, actually, because it proves his point. The Federal Election Commission declined to prosecute Edwards because they thought it wasn't a campaign expense, the hush money payments. The Justice Department, I think, recklessly went ahead and charged him anyway. They had a very complex trial. The judge clearly didn't like the case, but he allowed it to go to the jury, and then the jury hung on counts. They didn't convict him. I think they acquitted him on one and hung on everything else. And
how do the actual standards, like you objectively look at the nature of the payment, not the subjective belief in the person's head, how does that get into this courtroom? How does it get in front of the jury so they have the accurate framing of the law?
But by an utterly inadmissible, lawless method. The jury in this case is being instructed on federal campaign law by David Pecker and Michael Cohen. Worse than that, Bragg's lawyer, Bragg's prosecutor, opened to the jury saying that you're going to hear that Michael Cohen pled guilty to these payments because they violated the campaign finance laws, and he went to jail over that. Now, what Bragg knows is that my old office, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, had Bragg dead to rights on $4 million worth. Had Cohen dead to rights on $4 million plus of bank fraud and tax fraud crimes. He was going to go to jail over those crimes. The campaign finance stuff is trivial compared to those crimes. What drove Cohen's sentencing guidelines and his prison sentence were the fraud crimes he was already looking at. He agreed to plead guilty to 2 campaign finance violations because he was trying to make himself a saleable witness to the Southern District of New York against Trump. If they had signed him up as a cooperator, then the prosecutors, the federal prosecutors, could have filed a motion with the court to get Cohen out of having to do any prison time at all. So that's the reason he agreed to plead to those.
I hope you found that as interesting as I did. I think Andy did a good job explaining why Michael Cohen pleading guilty to and going to jail for violating campaign finance laws, and why Trump won't need to because Cohen cut a deal. Because he had bigger charges against him. Trump doesn't have that, doesn't need to cut a deal, and won't be found guilty because he's not guilty. He's not violating any law here. So anyway, the porn star Stormy Daniels testified yesterday, and she'll be back, and she went into such gory, intimate detail about her supposed relationship with Trump that even the judge said much of this shouldn't have been heard by the jury. As a result, Trump's attorneys asked for a mistrial, but the judge wouldn't grant it because he loves the glory of running a historic trial. He doesn't care that it makes us look like a kangaroo court. The third world countries around the world are laughing at us, saying, hey, you're just like us. That's what we do. When one of our top leaders finishes his term, we throw him in jail. That's what they do. It looks like the United States is going to do that. But anyway, interesting though, and one thing is Stephen A. Smith is a well-known sportscaster. He is a liberal. He said he would not vote for Trump, but he's very upset that the Democrats are using all of these trials to keep Trump off the campaign trail. And he thinks they're making a huge mistake, and that it's going to only help Trump, help him win. And he said he'd rather Trump be out there on the campaign trail than being held in court like he is. That's coming from a liberal. Very, very, very interesting. So I'm sure there'll be more to talk about on this in my future podcasts. One little thing on the student demonstrations. I saw a student yesterday whining and crying that she won't be able to have a graduation ceremony. They canceled it. She said she couldn't believe it because she attended all her classes, she passed, and she was looking forward to walking down the aisle. But she was out there demonstrating. So it's your fault, sister. It's your fault. I can't believe that these are going to be the leaders of our country in the future. Anyway, that's all for now. Don't forget to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button below. And that only means that you'll be notified if you go on YouTube of my new podcasts, and there's no charge or anything. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.